On the Road to 1989. The origins of this book lie in the golden summer of 1977. It was a bright time in Europe, both politically and meteorologically. The first oil crisis had passed, and a policy of détente prevailed. The Helsinki Accords of 1975 had built confidence. The West German government propagated change through rapprochement. The East-West standoff seemed to have calmed. It was in this political climate that my parents decided to take a summer vacation in the Eastern Bloc. The phrase was spoken with a note of apprehension, despite the new optimism. Eastern meant communist. Bloc suggested self-imposed seclusion and military threat. Various members of our family had bad personal memories of the Red Army in 1945 and in 1968, when it had crushed the Prague Spring. The itinerary for our vacation, then, was worked out with due caution. The first stop was to be Hungary, for it was known as the happiest barracks in the communist camp. Then we would travel to southern Poland, from there to the beautiful Krkonosze Mountains lining the Polish-Czech border, and lastly to Prague to visit relatives. Our journey started well. There was no iron curtain across the border. The Hungarian guards greeted us cheerfully. We were not fazed by passport and custom controls, as they were still common at Western European borders. Budapest was quite close, and the Danube glittered in the evening light. The goulash we ate at a restaurant, namesake of Hungarian communism, was far spicier than anything at home in bland West Germany. The first incident that hinted at the events to come in 1989 occurred after nightfall at the campsite in Budapest. At the gate, there were 2 entry booths and 2 lines of people, one long, one short. The long line, which did not seem to be moving, was made up of Germans. But they spoke an unfamiliar Eastern dialect, and scowled as they stood empty-handed, waiting. Germans also made up the fast-moving short line next to them. They were dressed more like us, and held valuable West German Deutschmarks in their hands. It was embarrassing to me, a teenager at my father's side, to march past others waiting in line. I was told that we were in the line to pay with West German marks, and so would be allotted a space immediately, while those in the other line had to wait until the end of the day and take what was left, because they could only pay in East German marks. If no spaces were left, they would have to sleep in their cars. Outraged, I asked my father why the poor East Germans did not benefit from the special friendship between Eastern Bloc countries that was trumpeted by communist propaganda. My father replied that the Eastern Bloc countries suffered from a shortage of foreign exchange, and were eager to get their hands on Deutschmarks. This was also the reason why Western tourists were required to exchange a certain amount of money, at that time 25 West German marks, around $12, for every day of their stay. I suggested giving the East Germans in the long line some Deutschmarks, exchanging them as we did shillings in Austria. Another discussion followed, continued later with our campsite neighbours from Karl-Marx-Stadt, about why the Eastern Bloc only permitted changing money in a bank and what an official rate of exchange was. That night at the campsite in Budapest was like a crash course in international finance and economics. Eastern currencies, Western currencies, foreign exchange, export, import, foreign debt, and, touching on economics from below, unofficial rates of exchange and the black market. The obvious injustice of the 2 lines and the scowls of those cooling their heels for hours preyed on my mind. A week later, after a long wait and extensive checks at the Hungarian-Slovak border, and again at the Czech-Polish border, which did not tally at all with the official image of socialist friendship, I gained the opportunity to put my newly acquired financial knowledge to use in Krakow. The Polish friends we had met the previous summer as they were hitchhiking through Germany on their first trip to the West, another journey made possible by the détente, wanted to buy Deutschmarks from us. They told us of the rising prices, empty stores, and falling value of the złoty. Clearly, West German marks and US dollars were worth far more than the national currency in Poland. Thus, ordinary Polish citizens were already demonstrating the kind of market savvy that later helped their country's economy to flourish. But back in